Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Double Down, the live online news and affairs programme that puts people first. It's Thursday, the 18th of February 2021. We're broadcasting live from Dundalk and Dublin, and I am your host, Finbar Markey. Welcome to the show, folks. I hope you had a good week, and if not a good week, at least a bearable week, if nothing else. We've got a busy show as usual tonight. We're joined by Jackie Fox, the irrepressible Jackie Fox, to talk about life after Coco's Law and her ongoing national campaign against bullying. We're also joined by TD Thomas Pringle to talk about the devastating impact of the Brexit deal on the Irish fishing industry, and also to give us a lowdown on the history of bad deals for the Irish fishing industry over the last 40 years since we joined the EC as it was then. Before we turn to our guests, let's look at some news that you won't see on TV this week. We'll turn to Irish news first, and the hunt for the serial leaker continues, with an investigation into the Leo the Leak scandal ramping up this week. It has been revealed that numerous potential witnesses have been interviewed by Gardaí about the leaking of confidential documents by Leo Varadkar when he was Taoiseach. It's understood that Varadkar's minister at the time, Simon Harris, has also been questioned by Gardaí. There is some confusion as to why the investigation has been removed from the Economic Crime Unit, and it has been moved to the Specials Crime Unit, which normally deals with organised crime. Is this a move and a beginning of a whitewash operation to absolve Leo Varadkar of his actions? There's plenty of political interest that would not want to see a government document leaking scandal resulting in criminal punishment. Staying with Irish news, Irish house prices have risen by 2.2% nationally over the year up to December 2020. This increase is despite significant economic downturn and unemployment as a result of COVID restrictions, and despite government commitments to tackle the housing crisis. The average price of a home now stands at €297,043. Dublin saw a 1.2% increase in the average price of a home, with prices outside of Dublin rising by 3.2%. In Dublin, the average price of a home now stands at €445,311. Turning to news in the UK, and the BBC has run with an investigative report this week suggesting that yoga encourages conspiracy theories. You heard that right. Yoga encourages conspiracy theories. In an online article on the BBC News website, it was claimed that people who participate in yoga are more likely to believe and spread conspiracy theories. The article cited a number of online yoga instructors that claimed the COVID pandemic is a hoax. The article also quotes a cultural historian, Matthew Remsky, saying that yoga shares three core beliefs which are key to conspiracy theories, namely that everything is connected, nothing happens without a reason, and nothing is as it appears. Nowhere in the article does it suggest that those three principles are also core tenets of scientific investigation, police investigation, and yes, journalism itself. I'm sure that people who are paying the BBC licence fee are delighted with the types of stories their money is being spent on. Turning to European news, in Catalonia, the pro-independence movement has secured over 50% of the vote in elections there last Sunday. On this show last week, the president of the Catalan National Assembly, Elisenda Paluzzi, stated that an increase in electoral support would rally the pro-independence movement at a difficult time when its leaders are in Spanish prisons or are in exile outside of Catalonia and outside of Spain. We'll continue to follow this story as it develops. And finally, in the Middle East, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has described last week's International Criminal Court decision to investigate Israel for war crimes against Palestinians as pure anti-Semitism. And he predictably raised the spectre of the Nazi Holocaust in defense of Israel's crimes against Palestinian civilians. This week, Israel further raised the tensions in the region with a no-warning missile attack on Damascus, the capital of Syria. Air raid warnings terrified the citizens of Damascus as Israeli missiles rained down, reportedly killing at least 9 people. Israel claims to have attacked Iranian military operations in Syria. It is notable, however, that the Iranians are in Syria at the invitation of the Syrian government and in the fight against extremist Islamic groups, often covertly armed by Israel and the United States. That's all the news that you won't see this week on TV, folks. Because we have a busy lineup, we're going to get straight into talking to our first guest. She's been on the show numerous times before. We've been following her campaign. She's irrepressible. We're going to talk to Jackie Fox. Are you there, Jackie?
I am, Finbar.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
You've had a busy, most people rest over Christmas. I don't think you've been resting at all.
No. Kept going.
So Coco's Law, just to remind viewers, in case some viewers don't, I'm sure everyone knows who Jackie is by now, but in case you don't, about 4 years ago, Jackie's daughter Nicole took her own life at the age of 21 because of a campaign of bullying that was both real-time tangible bullying and online bullying. Jackie campaigned for 4 years for laws to be introduced to be able to prosecute people who harass and intimidate people to that extent online. Those laws were passed and they're called Coco's Law. A memorandum has been attached to that law explaining Jackie and Nicole's story. And also funding has been ring-fenced by the Department of Justice, but only after Jackie really drove home the campaign at the end. There was a time it looked like it was not going to be called Coco's Law and it looked like there'd be no funding. But Jackie really, on this programme and outside of this programme, forced the minister into a corner and she secured those extra things, not only in Nicole's name, but also for all of the young people in Ireland. So that's just a wee download for viewers on who Jackie is. Jackie, over Christmas and into January, the law was finally enacted. Do you want to tell us what happened or how that came about?
On the 9th of February, which it was Safety Internet Day, that was the day they were going to actually have the law in use. I had a Zoom meeting with the media, and there was hundreds of people that got an invitation to join in on the Zoom media. And it was with Helen McEntee and Brendan Howland, and I spoke. I had made a statement as well with after Helen McEntee. The final thing they did was to sign the commencement order form, and that's in relation to the guards and the courts and stuff. And once that commencement order form was signed, which it was signed live on Zoom, that meant Coco's Law was now officially in use and ready to go. Yeah, it was quite a hard day.
I heard you on the webinar itself, Jackie, and of all the politicians and everybody who spoke, you were the clearest, you were the most succinct, and you were the shortest in terms of what you said as well. You didn't go on about things. But I just felt, again, you represented the law, but you represented Nicole and the young people of this country better than any of the politicians did. I think that stood out from that webinar that day.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
I have a few questions lined up here for you, Jackie, that I sent you earlier on, because I know you don't like being taken by surprise. Just before we get into asking Jackie questions and talking to Thomas Pringle later on, if you're enjoying the show, if you want to see this type of media being expanded and challenging the narratives that are being shoved down our throats by the likes of RTE, BBC, CNN, and the likes of them, please like and share this show now and let your friends on Facebook know that you're watching it and ask them to tune in right now. It's the only way that we can create alternative narratives. If we can build a better media, we'll build a better world. Sorry, Jackie, for interrupting. The first question that I'd like to ask you, Jackie, you've been busier than ever. What are you doing these days? You're campaigning constantly around the country.
Yeah, well, while I was campaigning for Coco's Law, I was doing talks in schools and colleges all over the country, youth clubs, football teams, community centres, but just because Coco's Law is complete now and finished, it doesn't mean that I'm going to stop there. I still think it's very important to educate students and adults on the impact of cyberbullying, whether it's online abuse or revenge porn or anything related to online abuse. I think there's a wide range, there's a wide range of people that I want to to still get in touch with from first year to sixth year, and from first year to sixth year, they're all on different levels of their lives. And I think especially the younger ones from first, second and third year, their life is practically social media, WhatsApp and Snapchat and TikTok and all, and they're seeing all this abuse, all the abuse that can happen, and they're the people that I want to still go around and talk to and educate them on the devastating effects cyberbullying can have on people. And then with the adults as well, there's a lot of adults out there that think, oh, my little Johnny or Mary would never do anything like that. They wouldn't do anything like that online. Well, they do. So it's adults now as well. I want to, it's not only going to be school kids, it's the adults that, the parents that I'm going to, not target, that's a harsh word, but, try and connect with to let them understand what their kids are up to, or if their kids themselves are being bullied online. So yeah, there's a lot of work still to do. Even though Coco's law is passed, I still want to continue to educate as much as I can.
You made some very important points there. First of all, that because of all these restrictions at the moment, children are more and more, like I watch the kids in my local area and in this house, and they're just on the internet constantly at the moment. And so the likelihood of them being bullied probably increases. And secondly, adults do it too. And we can see that with people who troll online quite often. And they're very brave behind the keyboard warriors, we call them. But if you met them to their face, you may not think that they're the type of person to intimidate or harass people online at all. What you were going around schools and you were doing a lot of really up close, face-to-face voluntary work, telling children about your own experience and things like that. With these restrictions, how are you dealing with that now? Because you're still doing the work, but how are you doing it now?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't go around to the schools and colleges with COVID, but so everything is on Zoom or Teams or Google Meet. I'm only getting to learn all these new apps because it's strange doing talks on Zoom now. But it's there's nothing like being physically there in a classroom and actually connecting and seeing the body language of the students that you're talking to, and who you're getting at, and who's really listening, and so physically being in the classrooms are obviously so much better. But for now we can just do it on the apps, which is it's better than nothing. But hopefully the restrictions will allow me, or will ease up and allow me to go back into the schools and colleges all over Ireland. I suppose the upside to Zoom is or Google Meet or any of the apps is you can do the meetings in your pajama bottoms and no one will see what you're wearing, so you can do it from your bedroom and you don't have to get done up. But no, the apps are good, but I can't wait until to actually be physically back in the classrooms again and actually talk to the kids face to face, in person. Be so
and what
much
happens when you do that? Because when I heard you first speak publicly and when you told me one-to-one Nicole's story and your story, it's a raw story. It's a harsh story. It's very hard to take in many ways. Do you lay it out as clear as that when you're talking to the young people? Or do you just tell them it as you would tell me or anybody else?
I do say in advance when, by the way, I don't ask to go into any schools or colleges. They contact me. I've never once asked to go in anywhere. All the schools and colleges put up a review on their page, the school page, and they ask me to go in. But before I go in, I do say to them it is hard hitting. I don't sugarcoat with Finbar because it's a real life story. Do you know what I mean? And there's no point in sugarcoating it because it just won't have the effect that it should have. I do start off by telling them just who Nicole was, and then I tell them where everything went wrong. I then go on to tell them the devastating effects on what online bullying can do to a person. That it can take someone's confidence away, the way it took Nicole's confidence away, and the way it took Nicole's smile away, and then the way it took Nicole's life away. And that's the real life of what happens. I tell them about the campaign and that I did, and then I also tell them an ending that I have now of Coco's Law. In the talks, I do say to them, what gives anyone the right to think that they can annihilate and torment and torture anyone online. People, you could, and I just say to them, like, you could say one thing to someone and it would just go straight over their heads, but you can say something to someone else and it could have devastating effects on that person, because they don't know if that person has mental health issues or they have family issues. They don't know. People don't know what's going on inside other people's heads, and so they just have to try and learn to be kinder and think about what they're doing. And I always say, you could have the biggest guy in the class, a big fella, and they think, oh, he's well able for a bit of slagging or whatever. Look at the size of him. No, that big fella still has the same size head, the same size brain as everyone else, and the same emotions as everyone else. So, you don't know, just because you're a big lad or you think you're the funny lad or the clown in the class or the quiet one. Doesn't matter. People still don't know what's going on inside your head. And it's just teaching them the importance of thinking about their actions before they annihilate or torment or take that person's smile or life away from them. So I do, I hit them hard in that way as well, but I always bring them back to the day also that we found Nicole, and I describe in every detail of that day. And that does hit them hard. You can see it in
What
them.
kind of a response do you get when you do that? How do they respond to you?
Oh,
Are there different responses, or?
No, do you know what? Most of the responses are the same. I go in and the reaction is amazing. Do you know what? Most of the students and teachers actually cry, and it doesn't matter. It's not only the girls that cry. You can see the boys, but I find with the boys, they're so fixated on the story. Do you know what I mean? And the girls, but yeah, a lot of them. But I think it's because I break the story down bit by bit as well. And I go into every stage of what happened to Nicole. But honestly, you don't hear a pin drop in the classroom, and no one's fidgeting or messing. And I remember one of the teachers, I had this class in particular, and one of the teachers says, "Good luck to you on this," holding their attention. They are messers, and it's very hard to hold their attention. And Finbar, honest to God, there wasn't a peep out of them. There wasn't a word. They were just so fixated in what I was saying. But I also, before my talks, I also play drama on Nicole's life, and at the end of it, I also play a song with all of Nicole's pictures of when she was a baby and when she was going out, and they'd be just stuck into it, and I've never had a problem with any of them, and they've all and even at the end of the talks, they would come up to me and say thank you, and they'd say we're going to share the Let's Bring Coco's Law page, and they're just, it's amazing. And I never do a talk, or any talk I do, I'd always ask for a feedback off the teacher, because I'm not a professional at this, so, but the feedback, the reviews I get are brilliant. They're amazing.
And do you ever get a response from young people or adults that open up to you about their own experiences of bullying or intimidation or things like that? Do people feel that this is being talked about for the first time, and maybe they can open up to you? Do you ever have that experience?
I get a lot of messages from the students through the Coco's Law page, and they just say, you know, what an inspiration, that it was an honor to have me out there. But a lot of them felt that they were confident enough to start to speak out of what's happening to them. I remember a girl texted me saying that she was one of the bullies, and when herself and her friends left the room after my talk, she said they left a different person. You know, she said that, you know, it opened up their eyes of what they were actually doing to other people, and they said they left that room different people. I remember hearing that another boy, he was a bully, and he, after my talks, the person that he was bullying, he actually apologized to the lad and said that you know, that he was sorry, and that he didn't realize, you know, he didn't realize the hurt that it can have. So you know, it's I know by looking at them how they're affected. And I know this probably sounds bad, and I don't mean to go in and make people cry, but if when people cry when they hear my story the way I tell it, it just means that they're feeling it. You know, that they're hearing what they're saying, and they do be upset. But after the talks, I always make sure that the teachers have a talk with them, you know, in the class, you know, and kind of, it's like they can't be going from the talk into the next class as if nothing happened. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of them do be affected by it. So I always make sure that the teacher has a talk with them and make sure that they're okay after it. But yeah, I get great responses, and it's brilliant getting the responses from the students.
And it's great to get feedback that lets you
Mm.
know that it's not just positive people who are not being bullied who are coming up to you, that it's sometimes the bullies themselves. I think
Yeah,
that's just
yeah,
amazing
yeah.
to be achieving that. And I
Mm.
think would it be true to say that you've spoken at this stage to thousands and thousands of young people?
Oh yeah, just and not the good thing about actually Zoom as well. I know I can talk to the kids in the schools, but in Zoom you can have hundreds of people. So when I have the Zoom talks, I would have fourth, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, like the whole schools would be involved, or the football teams. You could have 6 football teams and their managers on and their parents on. You know, so it's a wide range. So it's not like in the schools I might just do transition year, or you know, a few bunches together. But on the Zoom meetings or the Google Meets, yeah, you could have as many people as you want, and there'll just be hundreds on it, which I'm still doing the one talk, but it's with a wide range of
Yeah.
people. So that's good.
I mentioned at the beginning of the programme that through your negotiations in December with the Department of Justice, they committed to ring fencing funding for anti-bullying research and work. I'm not sure, and I don't think I've been talking to you about this. I don't think you mind me saying you're not sure where that funding is going at the moment, but you've been
Mm.
doing this face-to-face work for a long time, and you seem to be one of the only, maybe I'm wrong here, but one of the only ones doing it, and you're doing it voluntarily for nothing. Do you think that there's enough being done with young people and bullying, or do you think there's room for more face-to-face work?
Definitely room for more face-to-face work. I'm sure there probably is other people that are doing what I'm doing. I haven't heard of anyone yet, but um, no disrespect to a lot of the talkers that go into people, and I mean no disrespect, but a lot of the talks or people going into talks learned stuff from college. Do you know what I mean? Are coming out of college, and they learned a lot from textbooks. And they're going in to talk about suicide and bullying and stuff and all. And no, that, you know, that's fine, but I think it's much better and much clearer if you have someone who has experienced it, unfortunately, firsthand. Um, you know, rather than just learning. I think it's harder for people to go in and talk about suicide and online abuse and mental health if they haven't actually walked in the shoes of someone that has lost someone through suicide or through bullying. You know, so I think yeah, the real life experience is definitely better. Yeah, but it would be great. Do you know what? It's a very, very hard thing to do, though, Finbar. And even though I talk, I might do a talk one day, and I might have had one yesterday, and each talk is as hard as the day before. It doesn't get easier. I do get very emotional in my talks as well. Because it is an emotional, devastating topic when you have to stand up there and talk about the horrible things that happen to your daughter, and then losing your daughter through that as well. But definitely, as I said, no disrespect to people that do go in and do talks, but definitely you need more people who have walked in those shoes, and are able to tell a real life
Yeah.
story, you know.
This question might appear a little bit too personal. If it is, just tell me to mind my own business. Is this work that you're doing, and you're doing it intensely, you do it every day, and I know you're thinking about it when you're not physically doing it. Is this work that you're doing, is it therapeutic for you? Is it a form of therapy, or do you feel that you get some sense of acceptance from it, maybe?
Um, I don't know about acceptance. I think it definitely, okay, the way it is, it gives me something to focus on. I think when I think I need, the way it is with me, I need a plan, I need a focus, I need something to get up in the morning for. And if that's through educating people of what happened to me, well, then I think that's the path that I'm following. I don't want to be sitting at home and having no plan or no focus, because sometimes when you sit at home in your own thoughts, they can creep up on you, and sometimes sitting in your own thoughts can be lethal. So the only way I know what to do in my life now is, and the only way I know how to get out of bed in the morning and put one foot in front of each other, is to actually get up and put one foot in front of each other and go in and do the talks. And so I'm actually, yeah, I'm doing myself a favor by getting up and moving, and I'm also doing the people a favor by educating educating people at the same time. I don't, if I wasn't doing schools and colleges and community and youth clubs and stuff, and I was sitting at home, and yeah, I think it would be a huge struggle, and especially with lockdown as well, it's hard enough. But even without lockdown, as I said, I don't want to be sitting at home with my own thoughts
Yeah.
and in my own head, because everything, not not that it ever goes away, but it does come back with, if you're having a really bad day or whatever, it can hit you like a tsunami. Do you know what I mean? So it can be lethal with I know I can be lethal with my own thoughts. So yeah, I suppose it is, it's keeping me here, it's keeping me focused. Therapy, yeah, probably, but I know it's keeping me focused, and I'll always have a plan in action, so I don't have to overthink too
Yeah.
much. Do you
Yeah.
know? Does that make
I,
sense?
I think people, even who have not had the tragedy in life that you have had, sometimes can find it difficult to get themselves out of bed in the morning. And I think that advice is good for anyone, to be honest with you. You're not just educating other people, you're also educating yourself. You've completed a number of courses recently, and you're running, or you're facilitating a local group as well. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah. Listen, I'm not a professional in anything I've been doing, with the talks and stuff and all. I'm just a man, a heartbroken man that felt this is my path to, where I want to be, not where I want to be, but where I am at the moment. So, I think the more educated I am doing these talks, the better. You can never have enough education when you're doing serious talks like this. So yeah, I've done a live and works course, and that's through for suicide. You know, they put you in different scenarios of how you'd answer, how you deal with the situations. I've done a children force course there with Tusla. But yeah, what you said, I'm at the moment I'm in a group called Hug, and Hug is it's a bereavement through suicide only group. So everyone in that group has been bereaved through suicide. While I was campaigning, I did go to the group as a participant, and I got great help from them. But while I was campaigning for Coco's Law, at the same time I was training to become a facilitator. I also went to Portlaoise and did a full weekend training as well, for facilitating it. So yeah, so while I was doing campaigning for Coco's Law, I was doing the facilitating training and I was grieving at the same time. So you can just imagine what my head would have been like, you know. But now I'm a fully trained facilitator for the group Hug, and myself and a girl called Grace, we facilitate a group in Tala. Unfortunately, it's on Zoom. It's better than nothing, but it is great because the support and sharing and the caring on in the group is absolutely fantastic. But I can't wait to go back when the hotels are open. We'll be back in the Maldron Hotel in Tala, where we'll have our live physical meetings. But yeah, so that's it's not only the schools and colleges and talks like that, it's also the Hug facilitating that I do, which again, it's something, it keeps me focused. It's a plan, you know. It's
There was research done years ago, not that many years ago, on the impact of physical touch and in particular hugging for people who are suffering from depression. And they found that regular physical contact and just getting supported by people who will give you a hug and things like that can have a far greater impact than antidepressant drugs. So what you're saying really, really does. And the name of the group as well, Hug, it's just perfect, isn't it? Jackie, we're just coming up in our time now. Can I ask you if there's any grandparents, sisters, mothers, fathers, uncles, whoever watching this, and they think that their kid is being bullied in some way, or is bullying even, what's your advice?
Listen, the main thing is talk to the person, and as you said, a hug is more effective than antidepressants. So is talking. I think getting someone that's being bullied or whatever, getting them to talk is a huge relief of them, and listening to them carefully. You know, you have to listen to everything they're saying, and not just say, "Oh, you be grand," you know, or dismiss it in any way. I think you know, getting them to talk to their teachers or their friends or their family is huge, and not to hold it in your head where it gets deeper and deeper. But I think then you know, if parents or grandparents think it's out of control at this time, well then report it to the guards, because when Nicole was targeted, we had nowhere to turn to. But now that Coco's Law is in, people now have the protection that Nicole never had. So it's time, use Coco's Law, you know, and don't suffer there with mental health because of these cowardly people that think it's okay to bully you know, and with their cowardly actions, you know. Don't let it get deeper. But the main thing is make sure you talk to the person and listen to them, and then if need be, Coco's Law is now in place. So as I said, use it, because I often wondered, would I still have Nicole with me today if we had Coco's Law in a few years ago, but we didn't. I was powerless. I didn't have any support, but now people have the support, so use it, and you know, protect.
Jackie, we're going to have you back in the show. I think if we ever get the Irish punt back, yourself and maybe Deputy Catherine Connolly and maybe Claire Daly and a few should be on our new notes into the future. We'll talk to you soon, Jackie. Listen, thanks for coming on the show again. And as I say, any updates, any news, please get in contact.
I will. Thank you. Thanks so much, River. Talk to you soon.
Jackie.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, folks, we're turning to the state of the Irish fishing industry next. We've always known that since we joined the EU, Ireland and the Irish fishing industry has got a bum deal from the EC, or the EU as it is now. But I don't think we really know the scale of those bad deals. I don't think we really understand how badly Irish politicians have negotiated and advocated on behalf of Irish fishermen and women around the country over the last 40 years. And we certainly are not aware of the negative impact of the Brexit deal on the Irish fishing industry. I was joined this afternoon for a pre-recorded interview with Thomas Pringle TD from Donegal. Thomas has been one of the principal voices and advocates for Irish fishermen and women along the west coast of Ireland, particularly, but nationally. We rarely hear voices as strong as Thomas's with regards to this issue. We spoke to Thomas about all of the things that I've just mentioned. So we're going to roll that video now. And afterwards, we're going to end the show with something that's just uber cute, super cute. No matter how low you're feeling, you're going to enjoy it. But we're going to have a good listen and hopefully get educated from Thomas Pringle about his experience of Irish fishing and quotas. Do you want to roll that for us, please, Stephen? I'm joined now by Thomas Pringle TD, representing Donegal. Thomas is from Killybegs and has been one of the main and most vocal advocates on behalf of Irish sea fishing industry on the west coast of Ireland. Over the last 30 to 40 years, in fact, since joining the EU, Ireland has got what might be described as a bum deal in different forms of negotiations over the years. Although the Irish people tend to have a knowledge or an awareness of the fact that the Irish fishing industry has been suppressed by these negotiations over the last 30 or 40 years, I don't think they really have an idea of the detail and how the industry has been impacted since. Since that, there's been a Brexit deal, and that deal, to some, have decimated the sea fishing industry, especially along the west coast. So we're joined by Thomas this morning, or this afternoon now, to chat about these things and to, in a very clear way, inform the Irish people and our viewers about what's happening with the Irish sea fishing industry. Thanks for joining us, Thomas.
How's it going, Finbar? No bother at all to be on here.
I know you're in a bit of a rush to get to speak on the floor of the Dáil. So if you don't mind, I'm going to jump straight into the questions.
No bother.
And thank you for joining us as well. Thomas, you're representing Donegal. You're from Killybegs. How important is the Irish fishing industry to your constituents and to Donegal?
It's extremely important to Killybegs and to Southwest Donegal and as a whole now, and then also as well in Inishowen and Greencastle would be important there too, and right around the coast then as well. But really and truly, I mean, only for the fishing industry, the Southwest Donegal would have been decimated right through the 80s and that there, and actually fishing and the work involved in the fishing industry kept immigration reduced in the Killybegs and surrounding areas.
How many jobs do you think, just off the top of your head? And
I would say probably around about 2,000 or so that there would be. Now a lot of them would be temporary jobs, part-time jobs, because of the fishing industry and the nature of fish processing leads to part-time jobs rather than. Unfortunately, we've never developed a full processing sector in Ireland, and which would actually lead to more full-time jobs as well. But there's a lot of ancillary business then as well, like boat building, net mending, electronics and stuff like that there as well, that would all be dependent on the fishing industry.
Okay, and could you put a number in terms of the figures money-wise, what income is brought into Donegal by fishing?
Oh, well, that would be big now. I suppose in terms of probably the mackerel fishery and stuff like that. There, probably, I mean, the entire fishing industry and nationally is probably around about. I think it's around about €1 billion a year. Is what, or is that? Yeah. So and the value of fish probably around about 120 million euros a year of fish, I would say, or more probably. And I actually haven't got exact figures on that.
But it's big money, and we're going to speak in a few minutes about how that figure is actually suppressed by the deals that the Irish government do. You mentioned there that fishing has been a buffer against international economic downturns and national economic downturns. Could you maybe go into a little bit more detail about that?
Yeah, I suppose like all during the 80s when people were talking about immigration and stuff like that, there was very big in Ireland, and that Killybegs would have been the exception to the rule in relation to that. And the fishing industry kept people in employment and kept people locally in the area. Like I remember, and like my class in school, probably I was about one of the few people that emigrated from Killybegs at that time, and that would be in the mid 80s. It's a lot further back now than I'd like to admit, but so during that 80s period, and that their immigration wasn't a factor in Killybegs, where unfortunately it is now, and an awful lot of young people would be working in Dublin and working away now, where they wouldn't have been during that time.
Okay. Most people in Ireland know that there's some problem with fishing in Ireland, and know that the Irish industry has gotten a raw deal over the last 30 or 40 years, but they don't know the details. Could you give us a quick synopsis, Thomas, of
quick synopsis
what these raw deals have been?
Well, I mean, the traditional story in Ireland is that the Irish government sold out fishing to benefit farmers, and I don't actually agree with that. I think that actually the European Union stole our fishing rights off us before we actually joined the European Union. So basically what happened during the 60s and early 70s, Ireland, along with the UK and Denmark, would have been negotiating with Europe to join the European Union at that time. And the three countries together would have been increasing the sea area of the European Union by about probably 3/4 or more. And so what the European Commission did, or the European Union did, was that they made the conservation of fishing stocks the sole responsibility of the Commission, which had the effect of taking any negotiations around fishing off the table. And at that time, it was the only thing that was the sole responsibility of the European Commission. And I would argue that they did that because they knew what we were bringing to the table. And unfortunately, our government, through whatever, I don't know what you could describe at that time, but our government didn't know. And so basically it was taken from us before we could negotiate in relation to it. And actually there's a famous story of one of the negotiators from the Irish government side was actually sent home from negotiations because he was insisting that we'd need to negotiate on fishing rights, and the government wouldn't let him, and they sent him home from the negotiations. That was in the early 70s. So basically we were always caught and we were always playing catch up. Now, we did make mistakes since then, because in the mid 80s, then the European Union established what's still in place now, which is a common fisheries policy. And basically that was where basically countries declared what they could catch, and then their future quota was always based on what they declared at that time. And at that time, I understand that the Irish government asked the fishing industry what they could catch, and the fishing industry told them, and the Irish government didn't believe them and actually reduced the figures going into Europe. Whereas what other countries did was they told their government what they could catch, and their government increased it, and so it meant that they ended up with a larger share, and we ended up with a smaller share than we could manage. So the fishing industry was always playing catch up, and was always on a heightened to nothing from day one, and facilitated and supported by the Irish government.
So you're saying that the Irish government actually downplayed the amount of fish that the Irish fishing fleets were catching in negotiations originally, and that figure has been the basis for all negotiations into the future.
Yeah, no, but that's significant in itself. But what's the most significant thing is that the European Union basically took fishing out of the negotiations before as we were joining the European Union. So the European Union knew what we were bringing to the table. We didn't, and they took it off the table and said that you're not going to talk about fishing, because remember, like the French were fishing in Irish waters for hundreds of years. We had no fishing industry, and and so they knew what we had and we didn't, and that's so they went to take it, and it's actually these figures are a bit old now, but they are accepted by the European Commission, and that basically the total figure of structural funds, Erasmus funding, stuff like that Ireland has received since joining the European Union as of around about 2000 was about 45 billion euros. And at the same time, the total value of fish taken from Irish waters by other European Union countries was 120 billion. So even at those figures, they benefited over 80 billion more than us from our membership of the European Union.
What was the outcome of the Brexit negotiations in terms of the deal got for Irish the fishing industry?
Well, the Brexit negotiations was a very bad deal for Ireland fishing industries. And it actually means that Ireland has borne the brunt of the deal that was done in terms of fishing, and we were sold in advance of, and as the negotiations were going on, we were told that we're at the heart of Europe and we're going to be fishing. The fishing industry is going to be vitally important, and the fishing industry itself actually said, we've linked up with 6 other national lobby groups, and we're going to make sure that the fishing industry is at the heart of everything, and lo and behold, we were shafted. And basically the Irish reductions in quota are around about 15% of our total catch, where the French reduction in quota is 7%, and I think the Belgian is 8% or something like that there, and the Netherlands has a 10% reduction. So we have even got a bigger reduction than anybody else. And that's going to have a huge impact on, and it's going to mean a reduction probably in the region of about 45 million euros per year, starting from this year on.
So the pot was practically empty in the first place with old bad deals, and now it's been scraped at the bottom, really. Have you spoken to your constituents about this deal?
Yeah, I mean, look, the fishermen are devastated, and what has been given up by the Irish government in terms of Brexit, and what appears to be actually no struggle or fight has been put up in relation to it either, in relation to the Irish industry. And basically, it seems that the French have led the negotiations in terms of what would be given over to Brexit and fishing, and the French have looked after themselves. And once again, Ireland has been shafted, and it will have a huge impact on fishermen in all across the West Coast who are dependent on it for income, because basically they work on a share basis, so they get paid depending on how much fish they catch. If the amount of fish that they can catch is reduced, they won't get paid.
And is there any pushback to this? Is there any resistance? Because it's such a big industry. It's, as you say, it's an industry that brings people through tough and easy times. The international economy can be in collapse, but fishing will keep people on the coasts at least going. Is there no organised resistance to these bad deals over the years?
No, there's not. I mean, basically, the fishing industry developed in spite of the government, rather than with the support of the government. It developed in spite of it, and the fishermen and the fishing industry have basically done everything to keep themselves going without any support from the government or from the European Union. And I believe that the government would like to see the fishing industry disappear, and they're actually going well down the road to make sure that that'll happen. So I think that there needs to be, the fishing industry and the fishing communities need to think of some way of changing how they've negotiated and how they've worked up to now, because certainly I don't believe it has worked. I've never believed that it worked. And if you pin your collar to Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and expect them to look after you, this is what happens.
But I just can't understand who benefits in terms of the Irish politicians, other than climbing some EU new section of the political career ladder, being the EU. Where's the benefit of this to any politician in Ireland to actually fight against your own corner in terms of the fishing industry? Can you see any reasoning behind this?
I can't. Well, I think the reason behind it is that our politicians kowtow to our European masters, and they don't want to rock the boat, and they want to be seen as being the good boys in the class all the time, and they're quite content if they can get the pat on the head from Europe and get the nod and the wink that you're doing a great job, boys, and you're looking after us very well, and then they get to do the cut the red tape on the opening of a road, and there's a road that's open, and say that this is European money, but it's been European money that's been paid for on the back of our fish and our fishing industry, and that's the reality of the situation. And but politicians, unfortunately, take the easy route, and they'll take the route of least resistance, and that's what they do.
So, as my mother would say, they're watery high. They're watery.
They definitely are.
Take the path of least resistance. So what we're saying there essentially is the only obvious raison d'etre for policy over the last 30 years, Irish government policy, is personal career advancement. It's the only obvious thing that appears, and it's quite a sad situation. Just moving to a slightly different subject. A couple of years ago, we had images put to us of Irish fishermen's boats stuck in harbour while super trawlers were out just off the coast, taking in tons and tons of fish and throwing most of it back in. How do your constituents feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, they'll be sickened by it, and it happens every year, and you'll see it again next year, probably around about December time or early January time. It'll start again as well. Basically, the factory ships will be down off the west coast of Donegal and steaming down through past Mayo and Kerry, and that they're fishing away while the Irish fishing fleet is tied up. And the sad part about it is, and the worst part about it, sickening part about it is that like every mackerel or pelagic fishing vessel, Irish fishing vessel that lands in the port in Killybegs or Castledownbere has to be inspected by the Sea Fisheries Protection Authority, and rightly so. But these factory ships can fish with impunity along the west coast of Ireland, and nobody inspects them. Now we do every so often. The SFPA will respond to a public outcry and will inspect them, and there will be an odd inspection on that there. But I think the majority of the time is left to their home ports to actually carry out inspections when they come ashore. And what happens is that you get basically they fish to order, and they have an order for a certain size of fish, and that's the only fish that they land. Which anybody that knows about fishing or anything like that there will know that the order might be for that size of fish, but that might only be 20% of the total amount of fish that you catch. So where does the rest of it go?
Okay, so you have Irish fishermen who have minimal quotas and reach them very quickly, and you have these super trawlers who have much bigger quotas, can go out and take in a lot more. And I suspect, because this being Ireland, there's a big difference in inspecting a wee small Irish family boat and going into one of those factory super trawlers. And I suspect that the Irish inspectors could be a bit like a Father Ted team when they go on to those trawlers. Do they even maybe know what they're inspecting, I suppose, is another question.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Like, I mean, I think the inspection authorities are capable or that type, but because of European rules and stuff like that, it's up to the port that you land in to inspect. So these factory ships will be fishing off Ireland, will land back into Holland or Germany. So the Dutch or German fishery inspection officers will inspect the catch as they land, and that nobody will inspect them on the west coast. And I think because they're fishing in Irish waters, I think that the Sea Fisheries Protection Authority should be on board and should be seeing what they're doing.
Do they have a right to board a ship?
Yeah.
So they do have that capacity, and what you said earlier is they're not using it to their maybe the full extent that they can, and that is the Father Ted element, that they do have the capacity, and it's in the interest of the Irish economy that they do so. I know that you're in a hurry, Thomas. One more question, if you don't mind.
No problem.
If viewers want to get more information about the situation at the moment, and I know that there's no, at the moment, strong, organised, collective movement that I'm aware of representing especially the Western fishing industry. You can correct me if I'm wrong there. Where or how can people find out what's going on? Can they check it out? Even do you put up regular information? How can people find out?
Yeah, it's difficult to find out at the moment. Like, I mean, there is the different fisheries organisations. Like, you have the Killybegs Fishermen's Organisation in Killybegs, you have the Irish South and West Fishermen's Organisation in Castletown Bear and stuff like that there. And they represent the fishermen and the fishing boat owners. They represent them to the best of their ability. I would argue that there is no factual body representing fishing communities or people in that way. So it's very hard to get information. But you can look at their websites, look at the Oireachtas website, the Oireachtas Agriculture and Fisheries Committee, and you get bits and pieces. I publicise it as well, and others, a spokesperson done. But there's nowhere that you could actually point to somebody to say to go to one source and this will get you the information in relation to it, unfortunately. And maybe that's part of the problem too, is that the fishing industry is that there is nobody that is actually raising the fishing industry for the value of the fishing industry rather than value of certain sectors within it and stuff like that, and everybody's fighting for their own corner. So I think what we need to do and we need to push is to ensure that the Irish government fights on behalf of our communities and fishing communities at a European level when they go to Europe, and make sure that it's of a national value that they do that, and then we might see some change. But that's a long shot, and I certainly don't think it'll happen with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael there.
And so when we're talking about issues around housing, around banking, around different, one of those key issues that should be up on the tip of our tongue at all times is the fishing industry as well, because it may be representative of what could happen to other industries in the country in the coming years.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think at the minute you can look at how the fishing industry has been treated since we joined the European Union, and that could give you an indication of how the rest of us are going to be treated at some stage in the future. The fishing industry and the fishing communities has a huge fight on to try and get back to where they were, or get back, and that's the difficulty that it has at the minute.
Thomas, thanks for joining us this afternoon. You're heading into the Dáil. Give them hell. I don't know what you want to let us know what they're talking on today?
Well, it's a land development agency, which is of course where exactly where the government is going to take over and give land to private companies. Yeah, and this is what Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are good at.
Yeah, we covered that last week. Just a short on that with Councillor Anthony Flynn had put a motion with Councillor McVeigh onto the floor of Dublin City Council. We're still waiting for the outcome of that. I don't think it's actually been properly discussed. But Thomas, I hope to have you on soon. If there's any more news about fishing or anything happening up your way, please let us know.
Will do, Finbar. Thanks. Pleasure to chat to you.
Thanks for joining me, Thomas. Bye-bye. That was Thomas Pringle TD from Donegal, one of the principal voices advocating for and representing the Irish fishing community in Ireland. We're going to finish up. Oh, I'm just getting word from my producer that we have got some exclusive images of the Leo the Leak Garda investigation, and we're going to show those images now. The first image is an image of Simon Harris being interrogated by an Garda Síochána. This image is just being released into the news networks as we speak. There's a second image of Leo Varadkar, who has appointed his new legal team. Have we got a picture of that legal team there, please, Stephen? Rudy Giuliani. Yes, so I think everything's going to go very well for Leo over the next few weeks and months with his investigation. I think Leo and Rudy probably use the same hair dye. Oh, I'll get in trouble for that. We're going to close off with a little song from a little boy. No matter how anxious, no matter how depressed, no matter how pissed off you are with the lockdown and everything else, I think this little song from this little boy is going to give you a lift. And if you're ever feeling down over the next week, come back on, look, just go to the end of this show and have a listen to this. Night, folks, and I will talk to you next week on Double Down at the Irish Inquiry at 9 p.m. Night.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Don't worry. thing. But every little thing is gonna be alright. I woke up this morning on my horizon. 3 little birds were on my doorstep, singing sweet songs, melody blowing true. And they said, this message is you. They said, don't worry.